When Val Kilmer passed away last week, everybody was talking about Top Gun, Tombstone, The Doors, all of his really huge films. But me, I couldn't stop thinking about The Saint, the one most people forgot or tried to. But that is the one Val Kilmer movie that really had a powerful impact on my life. And now I feel like looking back that I have learned some things as a writer from my experience with that movie too. Stay with me here. I promise this is going somewhere. The Saint came out in 1997, and that just happened to be the same year that I was going through a divorce. And even though that was also the year that I got my first writing job, which was super exciting and set my life on a whole new direction, it was also the year when I just felt a little bit lost. Here I was starting out on a brand new profession that I never thought that I could actually be in, and at the same time experiencing the dissolution of one of the most important relationships in my life up to that point. It was confusing, it was disorienting, and it was certainly stressful. Enter The Saint. It opened up to a big splash at the big theater in our town, and then later moved to the smaller, cheaper theaters, and it was up for many, many weeks from what I remember. And the reason I remember is because I saw that movie in the theater 13 times. And that may seem really strange to most people, but I would go in and sit down in this little theater and get lost in this movie. And I loved the funny little costumes, and it made me laugh, and the music was just beautiful. And of course, Val Kilmer was an amazing actor, and he was also just at the top of his game then. And with Rade Serbedja, hope I'm saying that right, playing the villain in the movie, he's always amazing too. Everything worked together to make it an enjoyable film, but also it was just 2 hours when I could just escape. And there was also, a sense of hope embedded in the story. It ended on a high note, and I would come out of that movie feeling just a little bit better, even though things were tough at that time in my life. It didn't win awards, the critics weren't impressed, and as we can see from what happened after Val Kilmer's sad passing, it was hardly even remembered. But that film mattered to me, and that got me thinking, how many of us as writers create works that feel like they go completely unseen? The book that didn't sell, the story that didn't ever seem to ever catch on, the poem that maybe we were almost embarrassed to share. When this happens to us, I think we tend to tuck these pieces away. We may even feel embarrassed or humiliated by them, seeing them as evidence that we were not the writers we wanted to be at the time we created them. But what if we're looking at it the wrong way? What if each of those pieces meant something to somebody else, or could have meant something to somebody else? Val Kilmer will be remembered mostly for the movies that made headlines. But for me, it's The Saint, the quiet film that gave me something I needed at the time, that will always be special. Val was pretty well known for having to have faced throat cancer because it stole his voice. I can't imagine being such a gifted actor as he was and having to go through that. That would be kind of like losing your hands as a writer because you could no longer type. You could no longer create through the medium that is most familiar to you. And I really admire the fact that he didn't let that stop him. He didn't shrivel up into a corner and decide he just couldn't be an artist anymore. On the contrary, he would go on interviews and talk as best he could through the piece they put in his throat to enable him to do that. I mean, that kind of determination is rare. And for writers, I think that is powerful. That we remember that when we argue for our limitations, all we're doing is robbing ourselves of our ability to create. As writers, sometimes we think if the book we create isn't adored by many and doesn't sell hundreds of thousands of copies and doesn't make us a lot of money, that somehow maybe that book wasn't worth writing. And I think that what Val is teaching us is that, yes, he could be in Top Gun, but he could also be in The Doors. He could also be in The Strange Island of Dr. Moreau, or in one of my other favorites, The Ghost and the Darkness. He was known for playing strange, difficult, poetic, haunted characters, and even turned down roles that might have brought him a lot more commercial success. Why? He wanted to be those characters that fascinated him. He wanted to be challenged and stretched and pushed to be the best actor that he could be. I wonder sometimes, especially in today's world when there's so much emphasis put on how many books are we selling or how much money are we earning, that we silence those calls in our creative nature that maybe want us to go a little weirder or a little farther or a little outside of the genre or whatever it may be. I think what Val's life showed is that you can live a much richer and fuller creative life if you don't deny those impulses that you may have to try different sorts of creativity, different sorts of stories. Val certainly didn't get praised for all of his movies. Many were considered throwaway or just B-level movies. The Saint, for example, was largely dismissed. But that movie meant the world to me. And I think that's the power of creating all types of work in your career. It might not hit everyone, but it might hit just the right person. Your weird little book just might be somebody's The Saint. The third thing I think I learned from Val is that we are allowed to evolve as artists. He wasn't just an actor, he became a painter and a poet and a writer, really a storyteller in multiple forms. And none of this was because he had to or because he was chasing big sales, it was just because he wanted to. We can easily get stuck in a box as writers, I write romance stories, or I write sci-fi, or I write horror, without exploring what else we may be capable of. Sometimes our creativity wants to change lanes, try something new. It's easy, I think, to see trying something new maybe as failing or going away from this career we're trying to build, but I think it actually means that we're growing. It actually means we're expanding, we're learning how to be creative in more than one way. So we can try poetry, we can try screenwriting, we can try short stories, we can try graphic novels. A lot of times it can make us feel more alive as creative artists. So I think I'm going to try to keep that with me, that we are allowed to evolve. We're allowed to try other things. We don't have to stay in just one lane. And the last lesson I took from Val's life and his work is one that I've been thinking about more and more lately, and that is that our lives as writers aren't about just one book or one series. It's about the body of work that we create throughout our lives. Val Kilmer had some massive big moments with Top Gun and Tombstone, and even Batman Forever to some extent. They're the ones that everybody knows. But he also had many projects, that didn't go the way he or probably the audience hoped they would. I mean, The Island of Dr. Moreau, for example, was rumored to have been extremely chaotic and a difficult movie for everybody to get finished. And then it was critically panned. Red Planet, which was kind of a cool sci-fi movie, also didn't perform very well at the box office. And I think that's the thing. When we look over somebody's entire career, not just the hits, but the flops too, and the forgotten ones, and the overlooked ones, and the underappreciated ones, even the weird or the bizarre ones, then we can see what's revealed there is a real artist. Someone who didn't just create to win or create to have a lot of fame and a lot of money, but created to express something and to grow and to become something more. As writers, we need to remember that too. We might have a book that never finds an audience. We might have a short story that gets buried or ignored. But I think what we forget is that all of it, every single piece, is a part of the story we're building about our lives and our creativity. My very first novel, for example, The Rise of Sedina, the novel that I got my first traditional publishing contract for, and I was so excited about that novel, but I knew nothing about marketing a book back then. And I was working with a small publisher. I mean, they took care of all the expenses, editing, cover, production, and all of that, but they didn't market, I didn't market, didn't know what to do, so the book basically went out there and died. I remember getting a few good reviews on it and one bad review, and that one bad review made me feel like, oh no, I must not be a very good writer. This publisher must have been wrong. And then the publisher folded about a year after they published the book, and it was just a few weeks ago that I found out that a friend had been entertaining her sister in her home unexpectedly. The sister had come to visit and her car broke down. And so here she is having to stay for a couple of days and when she didn't plan on it, and she had nothing to read. And somehow in the house was Rise of the Sedina, my very first novel. And from what my friend told me, she picked it up that night to kind of look through it and couldn't put it down, stayed up all night, and had read it by the following morning. And I'm thinking, this is the book that's gone out of print, that, got the one bad review and didn't get many sales because I didn't know what I was doing. And yet to this day, here's someone that read it just like a few weeks ago and really enjoyed it. I mean, that's kind of like the story of The Saint for me. Everything comes together to create your body of work, and none of it is wasted. So I guess what I'm trying to say is keep going, keep writing, keep creating. If you are called to be a writer, then be that writer with your whole self. Be every bit as creative as you can. If you're quirky, if you're weird, lead into that, because that's going to help you create even more. Create it, put it out there, and it's okay, even if it flops, even if not very many people pay attention, even if no one gets it yet. Because someday someone might come along and say, that piece, that's the one that saved me. So here's your mission of the week, if you choose to accept it. Revisit a piece of your writing that didn't get any attention, or the response that you hoped for. Instead of judging it harshly, pull it back out and ask yourself, did I say something true here? Or maybe, did this piece help me grow as a writer? And maybe, could this help someone? Even if not very many people? If it still matters to you, this piece, then it still matters. So maybe you could choose some small way to bring it back to life. Maybe you polish it and republish it, or maybe you just post a part of it on your website or blog. Maybe you just share a quote from it and what it was like to create it. Or you could even take it and turn it into something new. If it was a short story, maybe there's a novel there that you could now develop. Not every piece, of course, is meant to be something more, but every honest piece has value. So going back and looking it over can remind us of that. It can remind us of why we write. So Godspeed to Val Kilmer, and thank you for watching. Mission accomplished. See you on the next adventure.